$700 billion. Let that number sink in. What could you even buy with that kind of money? A couple dozen sports teams? A whole fleet of aircraft carriers? Well, how about a country? Or, to be more precise, the largest island on the entire planet. That is the absolutely staggering number at the heart of one of the boldest geopolitical moves of our time.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we are diving deep into the Greenland Gambit, a really high-stakes crisis that's playing out in the Arctic. It's this incredible collision of territorial ambition, national security, and a massive amount of mineral wealth. And believe me, this is not just some simple real estate deal. It's a power play that could literally redraw the map of the world. So let's get into it and unravel this crazy geopolitical chess game.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 5 key parts. We'll kick things off with the explosive offer itself. Then we'll dig into why America is so laser-focused on Greenland. After that, we'll look at the key players all caught up in this triangle of interests. We'll break down the playbook the US is actually using. And finally, we'll look at the huge shockwaves this whole thing is sending around the globe.
So let's set the scene. In the scenario our source material lays out, the year is 2026. The relationship between the United States and Denmark is already kinda chilly, but it's about to go into a full-on deep freeze.
That January, President Donald Trump drops a bombshell. He declares that getting Greenland is now a matter of national security. And he's not just talking about its strategic location. No, he specifically ties the purchase to a brand new supercritical defense project, the Golden Dome missile defense system. And just like that, an idea that everyone once kind of laughed off as a weird real estate fantasy becomes a formal, urgent, non-negotiable goal for the United States.
This move basically boils the whole conflict down to 2 worldviews that just can't coexist. On one side, you've got the United States, pushing this idea of strategic expansionism, the belief that to be secure, it needs to expand its borders and its control. And on the other side, you have Denmark, standing firm on the principle of territorial sovereignty, which is, the foundation of international law, that says a nation's land and its people are just not for sale. It's a classic case of an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object.
So that brings us to the big question. Why Greenland, and why now? This American push isn't just some random idea. It's actually the result of a very calculated vision for the 21st century, and it's built on 4 key pillars.
So there are really 4 big reasons driving this. First, it's just straight-up national security. The Pentagon wants to lock down its northern flank and stop rivals like Russia and China from setting up military bases so close to home. Second, as we said, is missile defense. That Golden Dome system needs the perfect spot for its advanced radars, and Greenland is, geographically, that perfect spot. Third, and this is a huge one, resources. Greenland is sitting on one of the world's largest deposits of rare earth elements. Controlling those wouldn't just give the US resource independence, it would completely smash China's global monopoly on these critical minerals that we need for, well, everything, from our smartphones to F-35 fighter jets. And finally, it's about controlling strategic choke points. Owning Greenland means you dominate the GIUK gap. That's the vital naval gateway between Greenland, Iceland, and the UK, which is absolutely essential for tracking Russian submarines in the North Atlantic. And what's wild is that this isn't even a new idea. American interest in Greenland goes back over 150 years. Way back in 1867, Secretary of State William Seward, the same guy who bought Alaska, actually looked into buying it. Then, in 1946, President Truman secretly offered Denmark $100 million in gold. They said no. Fast forward to 2019, when President Trump first floated the idea as a large real estate deal and was, very publicly shot down. What makes 2026 so different is the framing. It's not a business deal anymore, it's a strategic necessity, and it's backed by a price tag that is impossible to ignore.
So, who are the main characters in this high-stakes drama? It's not just a simple tug-of-war between Washington and Copenhagen. There are a few key players here, and every single one has their own agenda.
Okay, so leading the charge for the US are President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, who are dead set on this territorial expansion. Standing firmly in their way is Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, who is defending what she calls the unity of the realm. But, and this is so important, there's a third major player, the Greenlandic government, the Naalakkersuisut, representing the Inuit people who are demanding their right to self-determination. And of course, you've got China, watching from the sidelines, looking to expand its economic influence through its Polar Silk Road initiative.
And this is where the human element just smacks you in the face. Polling shows that a massive 85% of Greenlanders are against becoming a U.S. territory. They're worried about losing their unique culture, their way of life, and the amazing Nordic welfare system they have under Denmark.
This isn't just a negotiation over a piece of land, it's about the future of 56,000 people. And that future is being debated right over their heads.
And their position is summed up perfectly in this powerful phrase, "Nothing about us without us." It is a crystal clear, defiant statement of self-determination. The people of Greenland are shouting that they are not just pawns to be moved around on some great power chessboard. They are demanding a central role in any decision about their own future. So this isn't just a two-sided fight, it's a triangle. And the will of the Greenlandic people is a seriously powerful force here.
So given that Denmark is saying no way, and Greenland is saying absolutely not, how does the United States think it can actually pull this off? Well, they've come up with a multi-step strategy that combines unbelievable financial pressure with some pretty clever legal moves.
So the playbook has three main parts. Step one is that massive financial offer to Denmark, the $700 billion headline. Step two, and this is where it gets really interesting, is designed to go right around Copenhagen. The plan is to offer direct cash payments, somewhere between $10,000 and $100,000 to every single citizen of Greenland. The hope is that this kind of personal financial incentive will be enough to get them to vote to leave Denmark. And step three is a legal loophole. The U.S. would encourage Greenland to use a clause in its own laws to declare independence, and then, as a brand new country, immediately sign a pact with Washington. It's a very clever soft power attempt to engineer the result they want.
But what if all that soft power doesn't work? Well, there's a much darker plan B. The administration has let it be known that it's ready to take Greenland the hard way. Now, what does that mean? It's not totally defined, but it strongly implies force. Things like a naval blockade or just unilaterally expanding American military zones around their existing space base. This threat is what takes this from just a diplomatic argument to a full-blown international crisis.
Right, so this whole conflict is not happening in a bubble. This attempt to buy Greenland is creating a new fault line in global politics, and it has some really serious implications for international law, military alliances, and even for countries thousands of miles away from the Arctic. Let's put this into some historical perspective. The U.S. has bought territory before, right? The Louisiana Purchase, the Alaska Purchase, but this is completely different. In those historical cases, the sellers, France and Russia, were willing. Here, Denmark is a very unwilling seller. But even more importantly, in both of those past deals, nobody even thought to ask the indigenous people what they wanted. Their consent was totally ignored. In 2026, not only is consent a central issue, but you have clear, overwhelming opposition from the very people who live there. This is not a 19th century land deal. It's a 21st century challenge to the way the world is supposed to work.
And those ripple effects are massive. The U.S. threat basically spits in the face of the UN Charter's rules against using force on another country. It creates a crisis inside NATO like we've never seen. I mean, how can an alliance even work when one member is threatening another? Denmark could, in theory, even trigger Article 5, which would force other allies to defend it against the United States. And for a country like India, the stakes are also incredibly high. It could lose access to non-Chinese rare earth minerals that it desperately needs. It could mess up vital science missions like NISAR, which is a joint NASA-ISRO satellite project monitoring Greenland's melting ice. And it puts a country like India in a really tough spot, caught between its strategic partners in this newly divided Arctic.
At the absolute core of this whole crisis is this radical new idea, the financialization of sovereignty. It's basically the attempt to put a price tag on a nation's independence, on its right to exist as a country. Our entire modern international system is built on the idea that sovereignty is something that can't be bought or sold. It's a quality of a state, not a commodity. And if a rich nation can just write a check and buy a smaller one, that whole principle of sovereign equality just completely falls apart.
And that leaves us with this really profound and honestly unsettling question. Can sovereignty actually be bought? And if the answer turns out to be yes, what on earth does that mean for the future of countries? And as the Arctic, one of the last great shared spaces on our planet, gets carved up and militarized, what happens to all those ideals of international cooperation that things like climate science and global security really depend on? This crisis is a test case, and whatever the outcome is, we'll be feeling the effects for decades.
This is a deeply complex issue, and this conversation is far from over. So, to help you really get a solid grip on all the moving parts here, we've put together a set of high-yield notes and a really detailed quick revision mind map that breaks down everything we've talked about today. If you want to access them, just click the link in the description to visit our website. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.